Right guys, I'm back and my triangle is looking a little bit smaller than it did in the last image because I decided to rip back my work. And then since doing that, I've restarted this piece again multiple times because I keep making mistakes, and this yarn is just, it is so difficult to work with. If you like slightly drop your stitch or you don't quite pick up all of these splitty little strands, it creates this like little loop. Like you can see a little loop there. Can you see that? See how that's sticking out? So basically my work, I just had heaps of these little loops sticking out, and I was like, oh, I'm just not loving the look of it. Like it could be neater, which is why I ripped it back. And then, you know, just here I accidentally dropped a stitch and it's just impossible. You can see like I've dropped some stitches and it's just like, it's impossible to like go back and try and pick these up because you end up just like losing a strand and getting those little splitty bits. So I have recasted this on so many freaking times. Honestly, this is like doing my head in. I feel like the pattern is difficult to start because it's so small. You only got a couple stitches. But once you get up to like basically this point where I'm at now, like a few stitches in your needles, you're pretty much smooth sailing from there. Like it's fairly straightforward. The pattern's not difficult to follow. But this yarn is just so difficult to work with. Splitty, it's black, so it's hard to see until like later on if you've like kind of made a mistake. Keeps slipping off my needles. I'm just not having a great time with it, to be honest. The ball of yarns as well, they're unraveling really weirdly and just creating knots in my yarn sitting over here. So every now and then I have to spend like an hour untangling the strands of yarn. It's just been like such a freaking nightmare. And so, I don't know, this is just really testing me. Really testing me, but I know once I get past this, hopefully the rest of the piece is not that difficult. We've still got a couple back pieces that have this tiny little cast on thing as well, so I feel like that's going to be difficult. But the rest of the top, like once this is joined and we've done our like underarms and stuff like that, hopefully then it's smooth sailing, because right now I'm like really considering giving up on it. It is just being a pain in the ass. But anyways, this pattern costs like 12 bucks Australian, so it's kind of an expensive pattern compared to others. So I'm determined to kind of keep going on this one. We shall get her done. So anyways, I dropped a stitch somewhere here on the side, so this one is done for. We're going to start again. I'm going to try work on this today, but I don't know how much I'm going to get done because I need to clean the house. See how these bits just like stick out? They all need to be like straight. Every time I unravel it, I feel like it's probably going to make it get worse and worse and worse. There we are. So yeah, I'm going to work on this today. Maybe work on it today. I've got to like clean the house a little bit. I need to redo my nails. It's going to take like half a day. But yeah, I thought I'd just come and share that check-in that I'm starting yet again. Oh, honestly, this is taking me so long so far. All up, I've spent like 8.5 hours on this project, and I have one triangle done. That's it. Like, this is just, I don't know. Anyways, I'll come back when I've actually made some progress. So this is now the front. So we've got the two triangles connected, and then we have two smaller triangles, which are the back pieces. And now all we do is connect this all together in the round, adding some stitches for the underarms, and in the middle back there, as well, and then we just continue to knit down until you're happy with the length. Okay guys, so progress has been made. I've done quite a lot on this, but I haven't really filmed too much. Basically where I'm up to now is we're ready to change to a new ball of yarn. Now, this is half of my yarn used up, so I am a little bit concerned that I'm going to run out of yarn before I get decent length on this. So what I've done is I did one I-cord strap. It's not attached yet. Oh my gosh, we're so tangled. I've just pinned it on. And then I blocked the piece because I wanted to see how we were fitting size-wise and how long that strap needed to be. So size-wise, we're looking pretty good. It is a little bit on the large side, so I am considering doing some decreases just on the underarm. So it means we'd have to bring it in on both sides by a couple ribs. So we'd have to decrease by 8 stitches either side, which is quite a big decrease. So I'm tossing up between whether or not I want to do that. But right now what we're going to do is I'm going to attach a strap because I tried it on and it was a good length. So we're going to attach that, and then I'm going to do the other strap and then just continue on the body until I run out of yarn. Let's get into it. Alright, so here's how she's looking. I've effectively run out of yarn at this point, so I need to change to a new ball, but I had to order some more, so I'm waiting for that to arrive. So this is just going to go into a bag for the time being, but you can see the section here where this kind of cinches in. This part's been blocked, this part hasn't been, so this is the last. That's how much I got out of one ball of yarn, basically. Or not one ball of yarn, because I used 3 strands together. So it's 3 strands, 3 balls of yarn. But you know what I mean. So it's a little bit too cropped as it is. It's definitely not long enough. I'm definitely going to knit probably almost a whole nother section. A whole nother ball, maybe. I might stop at like the halfway point, another couple centimeters, and then block it again and just see how we're looking for length. But yeah, she's coming together nicely. It's looking pretty good. Finally, we are done. Completely done. Boom. And here's the finished piece. I'm so happy with how this turned out. I think it looks really good. It doesn't even look like that handmade, to be honest. Like, you wouldn't really know straight off the bat. And I think the fact that it is knit in black helps with that aspect as well. But I think the main giveaways that it is handmade would be more so the fact that you've got things like knitted straps instead of, I don't know, some other type of attached strap. But no, I think it looks really good. I think it's definitely wearable, something I'm going to get heaps of wear out of. The fabric is a little bit on the heavy side, I will say that, and that's because I ended up having to hold 3 strands together. I was initially hoping just to hold 2 strands together, but that would have made my fabric, one, I wouldn't make gauge, I didn't make gauge anyways, but it would have also made my fabric far more like see-through. So I think you can see, like here, you kind of see the wall behind me, right? Like it's still a little bit see-throughable because it's in that broken rib and just with the needle size. So if I had only done 2 strands, it would have been even more like see-through than that. But when you're wearing it, you don't notice that it's kind of that see-through. It doesn't notice, like it only when you hold it up in the light that you can notice it's see-through, if that makes sense. Even though it is a little bit on the heavy side, it's still got a really nice drape to it though. So I'm really happy with how it kind of turned out. I think it would have been nice if it was a little bit like lighter weight, but overall I'm not mad with how it's come out. I also wanted this just to be like a little bit more loose on the body, but I think it's just the nature of having like a ribbed fabric that it does kind of like cinch in a little bit. If you look at the like pattern photo, it looks like quite drapey on the model wearing it. And that's the kind of look that I wanted to go for, but you'll notice in mine, like it's a little bit more like snug to the body. So I'm just hoping with time that like loosens up a little bit, and the fabric will become more drapey and kind of hang off the body a little bit more than it does currently. Don't think it looks bad currently. I actually think it looks really nice. I really like it, but that was the kind of end picture that I was hoping that I was going to achieve by knitting it in the size that I did, etc. So we'll have to see how that one wears over time, and I'll have to do some update. I think I might have to do some update check-in at some point to see how it's wearing after like the end of the season or something like that, after I've worn it a few times, washed it a few times, you know. In terms of like new learnings, new techniques that I picked up when making this piece, I've done broken rib before, I've knitted flat, knitted in the round before, I've done increases and things like that before. So I've not made a camisole before, but the majority of this construction was pretty straightforward. The only new techniques was doing provisional cast-ons to start. So there's only 4 stitches that you start with at the top of all of these triangles, and they are a provisional cast-on. So it was my first time doing that, and I'm not sure I quite did it right, if I'm being honest. I did use another black yarn, which people advise not to use the same color yarn because it's hard to see where your stitches are, which I agree. It was very hard to kind of find them to pick them up again. I feel like I only had like 3 stitches to pick up, and then I had to like weirdly pick up a 4th somewhere kind of thing. And my yarn, like my scrap yarn that I used, it didn't come out very easily. Like I had to kind of cut each loop and like pick it out with some tweezers to get the yarn out once I had got the stitches on my needles again. So I'm not sure that I really did it right, but nonetheless it worked well enough for the few stitches I needed, and for each one I was able to pick up stitches for my I-cord straps, which was the other new technique that I learnt with making this, was doing the I-cords. Super simple. I had no issues doing these. You do need DPNs because you just slide your yarn back and forth on one needle instead of like flipping your work. It's very simple to do, and these aren't very long. They didn't take me very long at all to like knit up, so I had absolutely no issues with doing those either. The biggest challenge of making this piece was definitely getting the triangles started. Like I said, we did the provisional cast on with like 4 stitches, so you're working on a very tiny piece. I'm working with black yarn. This yarn was an absolute nightmare to work with as well. It's very slippery, it's very splitty. I dropped stitches a lot of the time because I was working on my metal needles in hindsight, I probably should have used my DPNs to start the work, because you are knitting flat and it's such a small piece that they would fit on my DPNs, and mine are wood, so it would have gripped the yarn just a little bit better and I would maybe have less trouble getting started. But like, yeah, I forgot my row, what row I was up to and things like that, and because my yarn is black and everything, like, it's just very hard to see where you're at, so it was easier just to kind of like restart from the beginning and recast it on. And like, I did that multiple times. I even got quite far down on one of my triangles before starting it again, because the yarn, because it's splitty, you can kind of see here, see how that's got those like little loops that pop out? They're everywhere. They're not super obvious, but some of my triangles to start with, I think because I had unraveled and used the same yarn so many times over, it was getting these little like bulges of the threads, individual threads in each strand of yarn, kind of like popping out, and it was looking messy. So I started again for that reason as well, because it was just looking a little bit messy. And I ended up chopping off a chunk of yarn and starting again to avoid that. But yeah, I can't really see too many of my work, but again, because it's black, it kind of disguises them a bit too. But yeah, so that was really hard. I restarted it multiple times. It was very frustrating and it was very hard to get started. I found it a lot easier to be working like on the couch on my lap as well, because I think when I was working on the table, again, the table was slippery, and so everything's just like slipping and sliding, and it was very difficult to get it started. And I spent a lot of time just redoing the starting triangles, just restarting before actually getting the piece going. So that extended the amount of time that I actually spent on this piece. If I had not done that, it would have been a much quicker knit overall, because once you get going, it's much easier. I feel like once you've got like, you know, a few rows on your triangle, then you're good. Like, you can keep going. It's going to be fine after that. It's just getting the first like little bit started. There's like increases and everything right from the get-go, so you got to be like really paying attention to what you're doing just to get started. Now, if I was to make this again, would I change anything? To be honest, probably, I'd maybe play around with the sizing a little bit. We'll see how this like wears, but that's very much dependent on the yarn that you use and things like that, to whether you're going to get the desired drape, I guess, that you want from the piece. But yeah, I may possibly I'd make the body section maybe a little bit bigger. I don't know. The only other thing I'd consider changing would be the back triangles. I'd probably make them like smaller than what they are. So I feel like if you did one less repeat and just had like the little triangle here, it might look a little bit nicer. Not that this looks bad, again, it looks perfectly fine. It's just personal preference on the size of those triangles. And then you just have to make up for the smaller triangle by putting in extra stitches wherever else. It's pretty customizable, to be honest, in terms of like how big you want to make your triangles. You just need to make sure that your ribbing continues to align when you like join everything together, and that's even. In terms of the pattern itself, it was really easy to follow, no issues there. It's a pretty simple knit overall. There's nothing overly complicated to do, whereby the instructions didn't make sense. So that was all pretty good. The only thing I kind of disagree with is the recommendation to knit it in negative ease, and this is 100% personal preference and depends on the yarn you're using. But if you look at the project, the pattern photo, like the one with them modeled it professionally, the piece looks very drapey on the model, yet the pattern recommends that you have negative ease of, I think, 2 to 5 centimeters on your piece, because it's knit in rib, and because it was I've knit with like a silk as well, and that's meant to stretch out quite a bit. However, I don't know if it would stretch out enough to meet how the image looks, because if you start with negative 5 centimeters and the picture looks like it's got positive 5 centimeters, like, is your piece really going to grow by 10 centimeters? Like, is that actually possible? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not that experienced. This is only my second clothing item that I've made, and to be honest, this is actually the first finished clothing item that I've made. And so we'll have to see how it like wears to see if it actually like stretches out, drapes out, and becomes more like the pattern photo. But also when I look at people's like project photos, like from like normal people who have knitted this, their photos always look incredibly fitted. Like the top always looks fitted, and that's why I was initially concerned around like sizing, is because I did not want mine to come out looking fitted. And that's because it's knit with negative ease. And so I don't know, I'm just like a little bit I don't know if I'd recommend following their recommendation. I think, I don't know, you do you. The only other thing that I found a little bit annoying, more an inconvenience, is that I purchased an English pattern, and it does have some links to video tutorials in the pattern, apart from it takes you to a tutorial that's in a different language. And I'm like, if I brought an English pattern, the tutorial should really be in English as well. That would be ideal. It's really not the end of the world, because, you know, it's super easy just to type in whatever technique you are trying to do into YouTube, and it will give you a tutorial, give you millions of tutorials to help you on your way. And I've linked down below any of the ones that I used or watched when making this piece. So if you are looking for any, there's some down below for you. But that was the only other thing that I found a little bit annoying with this. Now, in terms of how much yarn did I end up using, you would have seen that I did end up running out of yarn, which kind of annoyed me, because this yarn only comes in 6 packs, and I only used a small amount from the second pack, and so now I've got all these extra balls of yarn that I don't really know what to do with, so I'm kind of annoyed about that. But all up, I did end up using about 7.5 balls of this yarn. It's very approximate, because what I ended up doing, this yarn, because it's so thin, and I was holding 3 together at the same time, I actually brought like a yarn winder thingy, and I wound the yarn together so that it was much easier just to pull from like one ball, and it wouldn't tangle on itself and on each other as much when it's all wound together like this. So I found it much easier. I only did this at the very, very end, but I found it much easier to manage my yarn doing it like this. But this is probably about, there's 3 balls of, three of these wound together on this, and I probably used, I want to say about half, at least a third to a half of what was here. But now I've got 3 strands held together that's a shorter length than everything else. So again, it's just an annoying, I'm annoyed of the situation. But anyways, in terms of costs, so the yarn plus the pattern, the end piece ended up costing me $40.58 Australian, which I think is not bad. To be honest, I wouldn't probably pick a piece like this off a shelf if I was buying it in a retail store. However, I think $40 for a top is very reasonable. Supposedly 100% silk top, it's very reasonable. But again, I don't know if it's actually silk yarn or not. In terms of time, so the piece ended up taking me a total of 8 weeks to complete, and I spent 68.5 hours knitting it. Now, part of that 8 weeks, I was waiting for new yarn to arrive, so that took about, I think I waited a week and a half where I had to put that piece down. So if you kind of deduct that, well, we're looking at kind of like 6.5 weeks to knit up that piece, which is, I think, pretty reasonable. Yeah, again, I wasted so much time like reworking all these top pieces. I feel like I definitely could have saved some hours, and if I was to knit this again from experience, I would hopefully be able to do it a little bit quicker than what I did. But considering that it was on 3.5mm needles, it actually knitted up reasonably quick. So I'm fairly happy with that. And I mean, it is sleeveless, so that kind of helps with being a quicker garment to knit. Yeah, so that's everything for my camisole number 4. It doesn't matter how many times I say it, I still forget what number garment this is. Camisole number 4. So yeah, overall, really happy with this piece. I would knit it again. I almost did. I actually brought some, I saw that the same yarn, the same annoying yarn, went on sale, and they had a green color which looked like a kind of like an army khaki green, and I was like, yeah, I can pull that off. But when the yarn arrived, it was very much like a grassy green, and so I returned it. So I shan't be making another one exactly like this, but it's definitely a piece that I'd be happy to knit again. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this kind of knit along journey. Follow me making this camisole. Do let me know down below if you've made this camisole, your thoughts on it. Did you make yours with negative ease or positive ease? I would love to know if I'm the only one who's kind of thinking that around the sizing. And if you want to see more of these, I've got a few other things on the needles at the moment, so there will be other future project vlogs coming. So if you want to see those, you know, do those YouTubey things so that you are kept updated on whenever those go live. Otherwise, thank you for joining me, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys. This is so freaking fiddly, honestly. I don't know why people do this for fun. I don't know if I should be wearing this because you can't really see it. Ignore this drama queen over there. She's fine. If you have a peace lily, this is a giant peace lily, by the way. I got it from IKEA. But if you have a peace lily, they're a great indicator plant for when you need to water all the rest of your plants, because as soon as they get slightly dehydrated, they do this and they look like they're dead. And so that then tells you that you need to water all your plants. Well, that's how my plant family operates here anyways. Okay, so to go with camisole number 4. 4, yeah, doesn't matter how many times I say the numbers, I always forget which number I'm talking about. So super excited to I can get, there's going to be plenty of, yeah. Let's record. Whoops. Right, looser. Have I got this inside out? Let me do that again because I had that inside out. Like how you can't even tell. Or is this inside out? No, I feel like this is inside out. Tons of shit everywhere. Helps if I press the record button. Is this inside out? Oh my god, I think it is inside out.